Michael Lombardi, John. A couple things here.
Didn't Jason Kelsey once famously say, Michael Lombardi?
Was that the parade?
Yeah. I think he started it with the clown Michael Lombardi. Remember on the top of the Rocky statue.
Yeah. That was a legendary speech from Jason Kelsey. Mike Lombardi, I guess he said this on Fox Sports Radio. I'm not buying it was Trey Lance all along for the 49ers. Anybody you talk to in the NFL that has sources, they aren't buying it either. The Niners can say it was Trey all along. That's a crock of crap. They traded up to get Mac Jones, and then the outside pressure became really bad. So there's two things that Michael Lombardi is saying here to address. One, was it Trey Lance all along? And two, did the outside pressure change their decision, and did they draft Trey Lance and not Mac Jones because of outside pressure? Okay, so two different things, both in the same quote. The thing about the outside pressure has gotten some attention. Ben Albright retweeted it and said this did not happen at all. So to me, this is the thing that I think has less discussion around it. I don't believe for a second Kyle Shanahan drafted Trey Lance because of outside pressure. Let's start with that part. Do you buy that or not?
I believe, and I don't claim to have inside sources on who they were going to pick the whole time, like Lombardi claimed to know, and he was wrong. And I want to start there. I think a lot of people that were open about and very aggressive about their opinion on who the Niners were going to take got it wrong. I mean, just plain and simple. They went all in on Mac Jones, and they took another guy. This area, we always red flagged that. We're like, this does not parallel or have does not look like what they've been doing over the last 4 years. I have a hard time seeing this. And we were right. We went back, Justin Fields, Trey Lance, whatever. It was just, I don't believe the Mac Jones. Michael Lombardi's, and he was not alone. They never wavered. And they were wrong the moment Trey Lance's card was read by Roger Goodell. Here's what I do know, though, is that I have a hard time seeing Kyle Shanahan give a flying fuck about what anyone on the outside thinks, whether what he's talking about social media. Because sometimes you read a headline, it goes, there's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of, like I saw Albert Breer, who I like Albert a lot. And I think his MMQB, like it's really hard to just take that over for Peter. And he hasn't skipped a beat. And he's one of just this unique guy that can have opinions, but is very well connected. And his MMQB, I read it every week. And he wrote a headline that Kevin Colbert, I think we have talked about this before, that he was only going to take seniors or guys that played this year. And he was like, that was very controversial. I'm like, with who? Like some people on Twitter thought it was stupid. I think we do that a lot with the Mac Jones thing was universal. You even said you were at like doing the Pac-12 golf championship. The dude that won it from Arizona was a diehard Niner fan. Is that true?
Yeah.
Am I throwing him? But I'm not even throwing. But it's just.
Well, now that they didn't draft Mac Jones, let's just say the guy won the championship. I won't say his name, but you can find it. Really, I mean, incredible performance. Won it in 74 holes. I had to go to the playoffs. And right after he came off the green, I was like, "Oh, you're a Niner fan?" He's like, "Man, I hope they draft Trey Lance, not Mac Jones."
So that was a universal sentiment. No one wanted Mac Jones here. I don't believe for a second that they pivoted, because I believe, my gut educated guess, from the moment they made the trade, they had a stack. They had a board. Now, they've said that since, that it was Trey Lance all along. We can go back and forth. No one really knows unless you're in the building. I believe that it was Trey Lance, and I think they lie a lot, so it'd be an easy one. But maybe it was Mac Jones, but they had a guy the moment they made the trade. And the way they played it, the moment that night, once they took Trey Lance, they laughed at everyone that ran with Mac Jones, basically like, yeah, we just let him go. Why were we going to stop him?
Right.
And I don't, and it's safe to say where we were coming from was like, that's what we thought the whole time. Like, what, it behooves them to just let everyone run with it. Because it got crazy. It got so aggressive.
Yeah. So, look, this was the biggest decision Kyle Shanahan's ever made.
Right? I mean, it's one of the biggest decisions in league history when you factor in a trade of that magnitude.
But my point is, for Kyle to take one of the biggest decisions, forget about the trade. I just mean once Kyle Shanahan decided, I'm drafting a quarterback in the first round. Hell, if Kyle drafted the quarterback at 12, it would be one of the biggest decisions of Kyle, maybe the biggest decision of Kyle Shanahan's career, right? Maybe next to who he chose to be his GM.
I don't know. I mean, Belichick took Mac Jones at 15. It just felt like whatever.
Yeah, but Bill's career is very different. Like right now, Kyle, this is the first-round quarterback. Kyle. Mike took RG3. Kyle is in charge of this team.
Yeah. Belichick's never drafted a quarterback that high either.
I know what you're saying, if you're Kyle Shanahan walking around the office in your joggers the last 3 months, you felt the pressure. But the pressure did not come from Lombardi and Sims and Schrager and Eisen and Haberman and Middlecoff, just all the big boys. It did not come from us and the media and Twitter and Niner fans and Jed York and the referee at your kid's soccer team. The pressure that he felt came from him understanding what a significant decision he was making. That's my point. So there is no way in hell that Kyle Shanahan making the biggest decision of his career allowed Twitter, and when I say Twitter, this is not even a social media thing because it's everybody was saying it everywhere, allowed the outside noise, let's put it that way, because this is just everybody everywhere that covered the league talking about this. There's not a chance in hell he allowed that to affect his decision. No way. No way. There's no way that Jed York telling him, man, everyone's talking. Not a chance in hell, John. Because totally the pressure that he puts on himself, we see it on his face every day when he coaches his football team. Now, as it relates to whether or not they love Trey from the beginning, yeah, I buy that he watched the film and said to John Lynch, you got to watch this guy. And I buy on Monday when they talked about him, they said, man, think of all the stuff you could do with Trey Lance. And I agree with you that I think they had a stack of guys when they made the trade. Like, here's the number of guys we'd be comfortable with, right?
Well, I'm saying they had Trey picked when they made the trade.
So I agree they had a stack of guys and maybe Trey was at the top. Where I would differ a little is I do think they considered Mac Jones. Like, I think they liked him. I do think they liked Mac Jones. And I think if they were drafting 12, they might have taken him. Did they consider drafting him at 3? I don't think they considered drafting him at 3 on Thursday. I don't think they considered drafting him at 3 at Monday. But I think 2 months ago, yeah, I think they thought about it. I do. I don't think Mac Jones was the leader in the clubhouse necessarily. Like, I do think they've said enough about Trey Lance to let us know they really like Trey Lance from the beginning. They've stopped short of explicitly saying Trey was the guy we were drafting the whole time. And even if they said that, would you believe them? Because everybody always says that about the guys they draft.
But I don't disagree that they like Mac Jones. Like, I do believe they like Mac Jones. And
I think they liked him more than Fields.
Part of the process of February, March, and April in any draft gathers information and guys go up or down. So it's like you don't necessarily know the stack of a draft board, and that includes Jamar Chase's and Penei Sewell's and everyone when the season ends in January. Like, usually the combine, that's where you can kind of get an idea with times, with weights, with interviews. That's kind of where guys get stacked. So there's some validity there. But here's what we do know when the dust settled. If they would have taken Mac Jones at 3, and it's kind of pointless to talk about this like in like a week or two because it's like he went 15. It would have been the biggest overpay probably in the history of the league, given that they traded 2 net first-rounders and this year's first-rounder and a third to get a guy that ultimately, I believe, given once we had all the draft information, was still overdrafted. And I'm not a Mac Jones hater. I think he's fine. But given Mac Jones' talent, that's probably as high as a guy with his talent has ever gone at 15. And the talk for a month and a half with the Lombardis was he was going to go 3. And I said it to Coward fucking a month ago that it would have been the most arrogant pick in the history of the league. And I was proven right because the guy ended up going 15, and I still believe to this day it's kind of an overdraft.
Well, you said it on this show first.
Yeah, I mean, it's just anyone with a brain was saying it. I mean, it was just like, what are we talking about? We hammered it home for a month. And just at the end of the day, they didn't take him. And I think it's hard for a lot of people that put all their chips in the table on Mac Jones. Like, it's easy to be like, oh, they can say whatever they want. They're bullshit. Well, bullshit. I think you got played. And I think listen, I'm the first one to say that I think they lie a lot. Because all teams do. The media is an easy mark for teams. They just are. And they can say whatever they want, and fans too. Like, we don't really know what to believe unless you know the guy personally. But I have a hard time thinking, like, when you read the story about the breakdown of the trade and just going, Kyle really wants Mac Jones, and I get that they worked, all the pick 3, pick 4, pick 5, seeing where they get. Where Parag, who was like a value genius, was like, yeah, we got to get there to get Mac Jones. Like, I mean, it never added up for me. It never added. And I think Kyle was a little crazy with quarterbacks, but it would have been still. We're going to find out. Like, there's still some sneaky pressure on Mac in New England, but he went 15th overall. That's a pretty precipitous drop for a guy that, everyone thought was going to go 3, right?
Yeah, but it's not really. It's a drop from nowhere, right?
Yeah, to me, he didn't drop at all. To me, he was overdrafted.
But see, here, this is what I don't think the 49ers said. I don't think the way they viewed it was. This is just my read on it. I don't think the way they viewed it was, we're at 3 now, we can't possibly take Mac Jones. I think they were at 3 and then said, okay, could we take Mac Jones? There are things we like about Mac Jones. Like, what I want to know is, okay, you called, Kyle Shanahan sent the clips to John Lynch and said, you got to watch this guy. I'm sure he sent him clips of Mac Jones too and said, look at all these things that Mac does that I think would work in the NFL. Like, you can have liked Mac Jones, ultimately come to Trey Lance, maybe like Trey Lance the whole time, and still considered Mac Jones. Like, when you trade up to 3 as early as they did, what you're doing is you're giving yourself a chance with an open mind to look at everything. And I think one thing Shanahan said was he watched the tape. They tried to do a trade in early February. They got to know Trey Lance. He told Eisen this yesterday. And if I had met Trey before I watched his tape, I liked him so much, I would have watched his tape and thought, boy, I hope the tape measures up to the guy. So I think Trey Lance solidified himself once they got to know him, once they had a better feel for his aptitude, once they interacted with him, all of the things. Like, it's not just about how good he is. And you always say, you've said this as a scout, like the first thing you got to do is the tape. Because if you love the guy, you can't let that cloud what you see. But even
I think that's fair in any walk of life. Like, whatever the job is, more than we meet the person, you're going to start naturally rooting for him. Or vice versa. You might hate the guy, but he might be really good at his job.
But it's also part of the evaluation. Can this guy be the centerpiece of my franchise? Do I want to work with him every day? Do I trust him? Do I think he's going to get better? Because I need whoever I draft to get better.
That they didn't have a lot to learn about everyone. But I have a hard time thinking that everyone was just like, oh, yeah, we can just take Mac. Like, there had to be, if that is true, there had to be John Lynch and Adam Peters had to be like, what the fuck are we doing?
Yeah, I think that there are probably people that were 100% all in on Trey Lance the whole time. I do think they still considered.
Because they end up evaluating. I mean, part of John Lynch and Adam Peters' job is they do that in the fall when Kyle's coaching against the Jets, right?
Yeah.
They watch college tape and do that stuff during the fall. Kyle does not, and the coaching staff does not get involved till January. He claimed he was watching like when they were in Cabo, the way I read it.
Yeah, because he went beach house for a month and watched tape. Yeah. But one thing John Lynch said, remember, when they finally told each other, when Kyle finally told him who he liked, right? That the way they presented it was the reaction was John went, okay, good. Almost as if John was on Trey. He thought Kyle would be too, but Kyle had to tell him, Trey Lance is the guy we're taking. So, again, since we started this with Lombardi, I don't buy outside pressure affecting their decision. Do I think they like Trey Lance from the beginning? I mean, that's what they've said. I just think they've left enough open that I do think they also considered. Now, I don't think they considered Mac Jones a week ago.
A lot of players.
Yes. I don't think this was February 1, whenever they started trying to do the deal. Trey Lance is the guy we're drafting. I don't think that's what it was. I don't think it was in stone. Trey Lance was the guy they were drafting when they did the deal.
Trey Lance was the top of the stack.
Okay, that's fine. That's different than Trey Lance is the guy we're drafting and it's over.
Yeah, but nobody, even when you make a trade, unless you're trading up to 1, like when the Eagles made the trade for Carson Wentz, they were still debating Jared Goff and Carson Wentz because they didn't know who the pick was going to be. So I think that's part of the process while you make a trade. But you make the trade with a guy at top. Now, maybe that changes.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, if Kyle had to be like, if part of this is a little fabrication and he had to be talked into it, Pete Carroll had to be talked into Russell Wilson. So as long as you come to the right conclusion and don't make a mistake, then, and ultimately we don't know anything yet, but it was the right decision in terms of what you would have had to pay on draft day. Drafting Mac Jones, I mean, he would have to be like a top 5 quarter. It would have been a horrendous decision. So I'm just, but
look, ultimately, I mean, we use where he went partly to justify that. I think that take was legitimate before the draft. Justin Fields went 11. It's not like Justin Fields went 4 or 5 or 6 either, right?
I think it's fair to say that a decent amount of teams like Mac Jones and Trey Lance more than Justin Fields, but I heard that the Bears love Mac Jones and they ended up taking Justin Fields. So it's hard to truly know because everyone sculpts their truth that they want you to believe.
For sure.
But you're really just defined on who you end up taking, right?
Yes.